What's up and welcome to SMA Marketing. In today's video, we're going to be talking about content pruning and why sometimes removing content is actually the best thing for your website. To help me out in this video, I'm going to have Beth Walker join us. She is the content manager here at SMA Marketing and will be able to answer some questions as well as walk us through the process of content pruning and how this can revamp your site when you remove that low value content. All right, so today I have with me Beth Walker, and she is the content manager at SMA Marketing and the perfect person to walk us through content pruning and how we can remove old content that's not working for us in order to make room for things that do work for us. So Beth, you want to give a quick 30-second intro?
Hey everyone, great to be here. I've been with SMA working in content since 2016. I'm excited to spend today sharing a process that has worked really well for us with ourselves and with other clients.
Awesome. So to get into it, let's just start with the most basic question. Can you explain what content pruning is and why it's essential for maintaining a healthy website?
Yes, so content pruning is a strategy where you're either going to remove or improve the content on your website. And this is an essential part of best practices for content strategy and for SEO, because Google's first recommendation for SEO, content is helpful, reliable, and people first. And also freshness is a signal. And so if you have a bunch of content on your website that has been stagnant, that's losing out on that opportunity to provide a best user experience. And also on the analytics side, it's not helping Google to understand the context of your content.
So how do you identify content that needs to be pruned? Like what metrics or signs should indicate that a content piece is underperforming?
There are a ton of different variables to this, but the first question you need to ask yourself is this serving my audience? How does this provide value to my audience? From there, you're going to look at a variety of things. I think one thing we forget, especially if our website's been around for a long time, our products, our services, even our business philosophies change. And so some of that older content may no longer reflect how you think about things. If you have stats and things, they may not be accurate. And so all of these little details come together to provide a less than superb user experience. And you're not being helpful. And so when we look at Google's definition of helpful, we need to consider how that older content may not be reflecting our current brand philosophy and values.
So what tools or software are you using to analyze and identify this type of content?
You basically need to use a tool that's going to show you that you have zero traffic on the page. For us, that's Ahrefs. There is a way to do this with a free account, but it goes a lot quicker if you have a paid account. And so I'll show you what that looks like here. But you just for Ahrefs, if you wanted to set up like the free trial, this might be your time to try it, is so that you can have access to see your zero traffic pages. So I'm just going to share my screen really quick here. And it's pretty quick to get to. You can see I'm showing SMA here, and I'm on the Site Explorer, and you just scroll down to the actually I'm going to go back one tab. So I'm on the Site Explorer still, and I'm going to scroll down to the page traffic, and you can see that there's currently 287 pages that have zero traffic. Now, Ahrefs is looking at that from this month, and so you do need to do a little filtering with this. You want to compare back a year. And the reason for that is because it takes a while for index to be indexed in some cases. But also, I think there's a lot of value in seeing the change. For us, we've actually gone through this process. And so you can see a lot of lost URLs. That's not necessarily stuff we've removed. What that is in a lot of cases is we've analyzed the SERPs and we've shifted our structure to best reflect what Google is finding value. And we'll get into that in a little bit more detail. But what we can see here is like, we see a URL that says, Google Analytics pros and cons, and we're ranking for the right keyword, but we don't have any traffic to it. So the next question becomes, how long ago did we publish that? And if it's been a year, it's time to reassess.
So when you're looking at this content, you can make a couple different decisions. You can choose to either remove that piece of content or you can repurpose it. So how do you decide between each of those different actions?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into that, and it really starts with this list. So from here, what we do is we move into a sheet here that gives us the opportunity to really break down the details of the content. And what you see is everything is, I've just pulled the spreadsheet from Ahrefs and I've moved that data over here. And you can see all the pages are hyperlinked, which is really convenient when you're trying to figure out page by page. There's some things I can look at and I can just go, okay, we're in 2024. This is outdated, right? And so that's my first thing is like, do we need to know SEO tips for 2021? Probably not. So my recommendation would be to delete that, but we'll go back and we'll do a deeper look because we're not going to just look at the URL. We're actually going to go page by page, and we're gonna explore a lot of details on the page, like on page SEO structure. Is this redundant? And that's, I think, the most important thing. So once you've pulled everything into your spreadsheet here, you're going to do a quick ROT assessment. And I actually call it a ROTted assessment, which is redundant, trivial, out of dated, and does it need a deeper review? And most of the time, at this stage, it's going to need that deeper review because I can't tell just from a URL if it needs to be updated or if it needs to be removed. Anything with numbers is pretty quick to be able to say that we remove it. And because I work on our content for SMA, I can tell if something's redundant. Like if we have, and you could organize this, you could alphabetize it. But if you have a whole bunch of URLs that talk about mobile SEO tips, then we're looking at something redundant. And so then our strategy from there is going to be partially delete and partially update.
So what are some of those ways that you would repurpose low performing content instead of removing it altogether?
So there's a ton of opportunities to do that, or different ways to do that. The first thing is you want to look and see. So for example, okay, so we're ranking for a great keyword here. So, but the first thing we want to do is we want to see, is this the best keyword for this particular content? And the only way to do that is the quickest way to do that is to look at the article itself to make sure contextually that it's accurate. And then from there, we're going to kind of scroll down. Okay, this was published in 2017. So there's a lot that's changed in mobile since 2017, right? And so we see that it's structurally sound, but the reality is, as we scroll through here, there's probably some things that need to be updated, like a stat like this, just simply because the data's changed since 2017. And so there's a lot of things that we can just at a quick glance, we can say, okay, this is, it talks about Google Plus, right? So there's some things here that we can just update for accurate context. But the other thing would be to actually Google the title and then to compare the top 5 to 6 articles and to see when people, what does Google consider to be valuable when people are searching for mobile SEO tips. And then from there, you can kind of see what you're missing. Do the other articles have infographics? Do the other articles have, some type of a tool? I don't, that's not a good example with this particular article, but, do they walk you through how to ensure that you're optimized for mobile? Are there images that you're missing? Are there questions that people are asking that maybe you've missed that you could add a full section of content to under a header or maybe an FAQ section? The other thing would be, length of articles. Like, oftentimes people think, well, it needs to be really, really long. But in reality, if everything else is about 300 to 500 words and your article is 2,000 to 3,000 words, maybe that's part of why it's not ranking, because you don't have the most valuable information at the top of the article. So sometimes even just restructuring where things sit on a page can be helpful. The other thing would be, is it the right stage of the buyer journey? So this is informational, and that's correct. But if you were to look and Google this title and it was a whole bunch of like products for some reason, then you would know, well, I'm just not going to rank because I'm not writing for the right stage of the buyer journey.
So from your point of view, what would be some of the main benefits of content pruning when it comes to a website's performance?
So what we have seen is that there are several ways that content pruning can add value. And I'll give you a couple examples here. So with our own site, with the SMA site, which was our first test case with this, we found that we just had a ton of outdated content. Like, you'd been blogging for a really long time, and we were writing on the same subject multiple times. And so there were spaces where it was like, man, this is just not even accurate anymore because search marketing has changed so much since 2015 or whatever it was.
Right.
And then there were other times where it was like, okay, we've actually got 3 or 4 versions of this article. And so what we did in those cases is we looked at the highest ranking URL, like that had earned the right keywords, and we redirected everything over there, and we combined. Like, there was still a lot of value. And I think that's one of the things where people can get a little hesitant about doing this is there's a lot of time and money that goes into creating that content. And so it can feel very counterproductive to then remove it. But you have to remember, it hasn't gotten any views in at least a year. And so it's not doing any value by sitting on your website, but removing it signals to Google, I'm paying attention, I'm trying to do my best. And it also provides the best user experience for people. So even if you have something that's doing really well, like from 2016 or something, it doesn't mean that you should ignore it. It should still be accurate. We still want to make sure we're providing the best user experience. So why would we do that with the 0-click content too?
Right.
Oh, and another example of this, we were working with a client in higher ed that they had a ton of traffic coming to the website. But when we looked into it, we found that the content was focused on book reviews, like all of their top ranking keywords and all of their traffic was focused on book reviews. And that adds a lot of value. Educational people read books. And so that's important, but it wasn't actually carrying over. There's not a correlation between someone wanting a book review and someone looking to major, to get a master's degree in something. And so their buyer journey was not clear because people were reading the book review and leaving the website. And so we actually pruned thousands of URLs. And we just kind of moved them to a subdomain. And it looks like, if you just look at the data, it looks like, oh man, they've lost a ton of impressions. They've lost like all these website visits. But in reality, all of those program pages for the majors, they're all the ones that are ranking now, and they're the ones that are getting traffic and they're converting. And so position wise for their most valuable keywords is up, And we've actually regained a ton of that traffic as well. But now we know it's qualified traffic. It's the relevant people.
What was nice about that case study was, having a shift away from vanity metrics only. Not that rank can be a vanity metric if you're only looking at rank, but ultimately they wanted applications. They wanted people downloading the course, information. And when that kind of traffic wasn't coming to the site, those numbers weren't happening. So while some of the traffic or the total numbers of ranked pages shifted because it moved to another domain, the main KPIs started to go up and are continuing to go up after this process. So I think that's important. When we're tracking this, we're not just looking at traffic, we're not just looking at rank, but we're also looking at those key metrics. What is the website trying to achieve? And is the content that we have on that website actually helping them? So I thought that was a really cool case study too. And it's one that we get to continue to watch as well. Site still grows.
Yeah. And that goes back to our original question of how is this serving your audience? Because to some degree it was, but it wasn't actually helping them find information about furthering their education.
So if somebody was getting started with this, what advice would you give to a beginner?
So I think that there's two questions that you need to ask yourself. So the first thing would be to remember that it can take a long time for Google to index something. So I would look back a year or older to start this. So, and you could do this simply by going to the first couple articles you publish. And another thing we noticed is voice changes over time. And so, there's just a lot of things that you'll realize, gosh, that doesn't even sound like me. And it's not just because you think differently, it's just because you've become a stronger writer or, you use different terminology. And so you can go all the way back to the beginning, or you can, do the search like we did with Ahrefs, where you're just going to look at zero traffic. And you want to go through that, like, is it redundant? Is it this? Or is it out of date and all of those? But then the other thing you want to ask is, how much time is it going to take me to update this? And this has been an error on my part often, where I'll look at something and say, oh, this is a quick lift, 30 minutes max. And then 4 hours in, I'm thinking, we should have just removed this. This is a complete waste of time. And so that's the other thing. And you don't have to completely get rid of that content. If you feel like there might be value in the work somewhere, pull it off and put it in a Google Doc or put it in draft mode or something. But I think there's just this space of like, let's say you find 40 URLs that have zero lift, maybe do 10 of them. To like the 10 that are like the most out of date, the most work, just get rid of them and then wait a month and see what happens.
Yeah. And like looking for terms that actually are going to have value, not just going after a term maybe because you think it has a lot of volume or it's a term that you're just, connected with, but looking at what's going to provide value and starting there first. I think that's really good.
Yeah. And you need to go one URL at a time. Like it's a very methodical process. You're not going to just sweep them away.
Right. So looking towards the future, how do you see this practice evolving and changing with search as algorithms and content needs change?
I think it's a really important part of an overall content strategy because freshness is one of those Google signals. And so, but the other thing is you get to a point where you've kind of written on every subject, right? And there's probably some additional question to answer, but the reality is you may add more value to your user experience by simply adding in a section of content to a particular piece that's already ranking well, rather than trying to compete against it with a new article. And so I think as an overall content strategy, if you work on a quarterly basis, like why not be looking at what can we update in addition to what do we need to write on? So, what are the subjects we want to focus on? Have we written on this before? starting there, it'll probably actually save you money in the long run, just because you're not having to constantly publish new content. But you also want to look at images, right? Like, you want to look at every layer of that. It might just be that you need to add some better images in and some accurate stats, and that makes it a better article.
Very true. Well, Beth, thank you so much for your time and joining us today on this video. If you guys have any questions, comment below, and I'll make sure I get them over to Beth. She'll do a much better job of answering them than I will.
Thanks, everyone.
So I hope you found today's video helpful. And like I said, if you have any questions, please comment below. We'd love to continue to engage with you.